All right, Chuck. So the Globalization and World Cities Research Network, what we call GaWC, released their 2020 rankings for world cities. And I know this is the moment that a lot of city lovers and urbanists wait for and either throw up our arms in anger or whatever. So you've had a chance to look at these. What are your thoughts?
So it's interesting, and just to kind of educate those that are not familiar, it's a study published every 2 or sometimes 4 years, kind of like the Olympics, but it has several classification tiers. So you have at the absolute top, there's just 2 cities, there's Alpha plus plus, and that would be just London and New York, cities that are basically effectively capitals of the world for their status. What I noticed is that in the lowest alpha tier, actually, unfortunately, we had several American cities. So we had Houston that was at that tier previously that dropped down to beta plus, I believe, and as well as Washington, D.C. and Miami that also fell out of the rankings. Now, Boston, which had previously been kind of in the on deck circle, for lack of a better word, moved up into the ranks of the alphas, but America does have just 5 that are officially categorized in this way now.
As alpha cities.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I haven't actually spent much time looking at it. I've got to say, over the years, I've kind of, maybe out of disillusionment or whatever, I don't have as much passion and fervor for these rankings. A lot of people say that it's very sort of British centric, since this is based in Loughborough University in England. So I don't know. I don't really have too much of a dog in the fight, as you might, as some might say. So I kind of view it as something interesting to keep tabs of, but it doesn't really tell you everything that if you're one to look under the hood a bit, it doesn't tell you everything you need to know. I don't think they really share a lot about their analysis and methodology, from what I can tell, at least, versus a list, for example, like resonance, that they've begun to put out each year, where they really break down each of the categories and explain what factors they look at for each of those categories. And so therefore, even if you don't agree with the overall rankings, it gives you a lot of insight into specific details for each city. And so I care more about like those details than I do about what the overall opinion, final opinion is. So that's me, but I definitely understand the passion.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense. And actually, I like that you brought up Resonance. I know that they have their upcoming World Cities Festival. So for any urbanists looking to attend, it's happening from October 22nd to 24th. I think Richard, Florida, and really a lot of prominent people are going to be present there. But I think, yes, you bring it up. While you may not agree with what Resonance has brought to the table, and I think at this point, what Loughborough has done is still the most cited study, there's very much a transparency with what they have there. Whereas, you see some consistency. I mean, I don't think anyone would really argue that London or New York City is like a global capital, but it's kind of difficult to take the list seriously when you see a city like Osaka, for instance. That's a global capital of tech, the second city of Japan, and it's so far down the list, you can't even, I don't even remember what tier it was in. And, there's several examples like that. And I think even they admit as much, that their focus, rather than focusing on global business connections, is really, focused and centered on business connections to London, which, don't get me wrong, it's a great city, but I don't think the world revolves around London still.
At least not for everyone else in the world, right?
Yes.
So that's the thing. All of these lists, there's never going to be a perfect list for everyone. And so, like I said, what I care more about is the explanation, the breakdown, and particularly when you can break down into different categories. So that's what I like. That's why I like having these conversations over just following a list.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no perfect system, and there's no, you know, what one person considers important or a factor is not necessarily going to be all determinative, right? So, I mean, you know, really, you guys as listeners, if you have some ideas about what cities are most prominent and stuff, you know, let us know, and maybe, you know, maybe it differs from these lists, or maybe it's the same, but that dialogue, I think, is where you really come to an understanding.
Yeah, definitely.